Composition we're going to be running for the most part today, of course, with a few potential swaps. As you all saw, Ball, Sig, we're going to focus on Ashe Tracer for our DPS. It's going to be our dedicated hit scan Eth running the Ashe and our flex DPS Gamolile, if I'm saying that right, on the Tracer. And then focusing on Brig Zen for our support line. There are potential swaps we can look at between maps and stuff like that, but this is what we're focusing on to begin with. So to run down some basics for the composition, we're going to look at the way this composition groups in sort of two ways. So primarily, there's going to be an offensive group or a dive group from your Ball and your Tracer. Please excuse my extremely poor handwriting, by the way. And there's going to be our backline, which consists of Sig, Ashe, Brig, Zen. The way these two groups interact is basically how the composition works. So to start with the Ball Tracer, your biggest focus point is going to be enabling aggression and finding aggressive opportunities, aggressive windows, finding exposed backline members, setting up dives together. So the biggest thing we need to hear from the two of you is pre-fight scouting, looking for ideal targets, setting up so you can engage in the same location together. So for example, if we're talking Ilios here, if we see targets over on this corner, we want to be able to engage from multiple flanks, from wherever that is. We don't want to just be running at them both from the same angle and then just running into their front line, stuff like that. We want to be flanking, taking control of the map, and collapsing on the same area. That's going to be your absolute biggest focus point. Of course, there's going to be a ton of other stuff going on in game, but always keep that in the back of your mind. You're looking to create aggressive opportunities together. If one of you is forced out, if you get poked out and you're forced out to recall, if Ball gets low and needs to go get a mega pack, make sure you call that out so your partner knows they need to slow things down a bit. All right, moving on to our backline for our Sig, Ashe, Brig, Zen 4 stack. You are going to be a very stable group, and the way you're going to be very stable is by staying together and for fighting for the same space together. The worst thing you can do is split up and split your attention. For example, if we're rolling out just from main, say it's first fight, what we don't want to do is have some people focusing over here, some people focusing over here, some people focusing over here. And remember that if they're running a similar composition, they're going to be trying to do the same thing that we are with their Ball Tracer. They're going to be looking to find flanks and find aggressive opportunities. So while we need to keep that in mind, we don't want to get too distracted on those flanks. We want to stay together as one unit, move around the map together, fight for the same space together, and basically solidify that space for our carries. Our carries in this case being primarily, I don't know why that cut out, being the Ashe and the Zen. These are our priority characters. These are the characters that once we set them up in a fight, they're going to do enough damage throughout the fight that it'll carry us into our win condition, which is basically just cementing our fight space and doing the damage throughout. Zen and Ashe, your job primarily is going to be doing damage. Pretty simple, right? When it comes to things like target focus, priority and stuff like that, cooldown management, the biggest thing you need to remember is you're playing to stay alive. You're playing to stay within your core group, play with your Sig, play with your Brig, use their cooldowns to your advantage to keep yourself safe. And then you look to focus things like Discord targets, obviously anyone who's split off from enemy groupings, anyone you have clear sight lines to. But don't be afraid to just burn down tanks, burn down enemy Sigma shields and stuff like that, because that's going to get us even more space and allow us to push even further into the enemy team. So to recap again, aggressive members are two-man dive squad, looking for aggressive opportunities, looking to mess up their backline and deny space from them as much as possible, as well as capitalize on any missteps they take, any bad positioning they might take. Backline group, you're playing a much slower game, and you're looking to go into the space that's afforded to you by this aggressive dive. Say, for example, again, we're diving on this space. This is opening up space for our backline since they'll be wasting resources trying to stay alive. They won't have those resources to poke down your Sigma shield to take shots on your backline, so we can move up during that time and then snowball off of that. For Sigma and Brigitte, you are going to be thinking a lot about when you can move aggressively and when you need to give up space and fall back. A lot of this is going to be dependent on Sigma's shield. Whether or not you have full shield or not can dictate whether or not you're able to push forward or you're forced to fall back to the cover or whatever it is. Primarily, you are going to be the ones dictating how much staying power we have during these fights. So while we want to be as aggressive as possible, we want to make as much space for our backline as possible, it's realistically not always possible, right? So manage those resources as well as you can, manage the enemy positioning as well as you can. So for Brig, that means marking people like the ball, like the tracer, any flankers really, with your whip shot, with your bash and stuff like that, keeping those cooldowns available for when they try to engage on our core. So you're basically the bodyguard, keeping everyone up and safe with your abilities. And Sigma is going to be the one pushing towards frontline whenever possible, but also the one dictating when they need to fall back. They're almost like a mini frontline if we're playing small 4-man Overwatch. That's what you need to be thinking about during these fights. There's going to be plenty of things that go wrong during these fights, and that's okay. The biggest thing for you as a 4-stack, the backline group, need to remember is that you're looking to regroup when you get split up. You're looking to use your resources together, whether that's playing behind shields, whether that's lining up cooldowns and aggressive movements, whether that's setting up angles for your Ashe and Zen together. Play together. Play for each other and enable your win condition, which is that very, very aggressive, very, very damaging backline. For some individual things for Ball and Tracer, I'm going to group you up, even though I said individual things, because you both play somewhat similarly in these compositions. One thing to remember is while we want to control as much space as possible, which usually looks like both of you flanking opposite lanes or opposite sides of the map, sometimes you'll be forced to move together. And this will often look like if the enemy team has control of the point, say here on Well, if they are pressuring every lane and neither one of you can get in alone, you can group up, push together, clear one side of the map out together, and then start looking to spread out and then start looking to dive. You don't need to do it all from the get-go. Take your time, pace yourself, realize when you need help, and call for that help from each other when you need it. For our Ashe and Zen, again, I'll pair you up a little bit here. When you're looking to make aggressive plays, tell your team that you're going somewhere. So for example, if you see you got a ton of value shooting down main here, tell your team you want to go aggressive down this lane and have your shields peel for you. You don't need to necessarily wait for your tanks to move up for you or for your Sigma to move up for you. If you see an opportunity to make that aggressive play, call for it, get the support you need, and enable that play. Don't go off alone. Like I said, the worst thing we can do is split our attention and split up and open ourselves up to dives. And then finally, let's do one at a time. Let's do Sigma first. Shield management is going to be a very difficult thing in this matchup. There's going to be a ton of damage flying both ways. Try to get as much space and as much value as you can before even putting up your shield. Putting up your shield should be you basically using an Orisa barrier where you're telling your team, this is where I'm anchoring for now, at least for the next 2.5 seconds since I can't flash my shield the way I used to be able to. So when you as Sigma are moving up and deploying your shield, say we're over here, we're deploying shield, we use shield right here at this corner. That means this is the space we can hold for the next couple seconds or so. Whether that means your shield goes down after that, or whether that means you flash it and get ready for another push, that's what you're telling your team every time you put up your shield. So keep that in mind. You're not just shielding for yourself, you're shielding for this entire 4-man squad, and you don't have as much staying power as a full-on main tank, so keep that in mind every time you put up your shield. Very, very important. And finally, Brigitte. Like I mentioned, cooldown management is going to be your toughest job. It's going to be easy to look around and see your threats, but responding to them appropriately and making sure you're hitting those shots when they really matter is what you're going to be focusing on for the most part. Marking heroes like Tracer and Ball should be in the front of your mind. Always try and think of where their positioning is, what kind of rollout they might be doing. If you see Ball, if we're playing here, for example, you see Ball rolling out on this side of the map, rolling through here, maybe he goes behind us. Be ready to whip shot him when he comes out this door. Be ready to whip shot him when he tries to roll through this way. Try to predict his movement as much as possible. That'll make it easier for you to land your shots and easier for your team to stabilize in these kind of spaces. That's pretty much all I had. Again, this is just a basic overview of the composition for individual playstyles and stuff like that. If you guys have any questions, let me know, but if we're all comfortable with that, I think we are pretty much ready to get started. That's this composition in a nutshell.